Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this Game.com video we're going to be discussing the performance of the Ryzen processors in accordance with the findings of id Software of all people, and also confirmations from AMD regarding the release date of Vega. Hint, it's this quarter, as well as some information regarding the performance of the GPU. Before I get into all of that, I do want to also go for a little bit of housekeeping regarding the channel, specifically on Amy, because, well, as you probably know, she normally produces daily videos, not so much for the next couple of days, at least in the traditional sense. So this was supposed to be a vlog on her part before she left. She didn't actually get time to do it for a series of unfortunate events, let's just say that. Basically, she is currently on a plane and heading towards Texas, where she will be heading on to Austin, and then she will actually be attending a press event hosted by AMD and MSI. Now, full disclosure, that is not sponsored as in she's getting paid for it or we're getting paid for it, but the flight and accommodation are paid for, which is pretty standard in the industry. Now, this trip was kind of like really weird, just because of how short notice it was, and I can't go because of the situation, as regular viewers know, with my mum. I don't want to go into that because it's pretty depressing and I don't really want to bring down the, the happiness of the video. If you are curious about what's going on with that, you can check in the comments and I'm sure someone will, comment on it, if that makes any sense. So I couldn't go, so it is her that's going to be representing us. And she, of course, will be taking all the filming and the blogging, and that should be pretty cool. She's going to try and put out a daily video while she's in Texas, in Austin. So that's pretty awesome. But I wanted to get that out of the way because, as I said, she couldn't tell you yesterday. And quite frankly, it's just been absolutely just crazy. There was a bit of a mix-up with the ticket. There were some problems with the last-minuteness of the visa. It was just like, oh my god, are we going to be able to do this in time? And it turned out, yes, everything came together at the last minute. So yeah, that's why we didn't mention it previously. Anyway, so let's begin with the whole Ryzen side of things, and then we're going to move on to the Radeon side of things, because I figure that makes an awful lot of sense. So there is a video that's popped up specifically on AMD's own channel, so obviously a pretty non-biased source. And yes, that was sarcasm, because, I'm a Brit and all. Now, I won't read out the entire video, I will try to remember to link it in the video description. But, he said, and I quote, this, by the way, being the Chief Technology Officer, CTO, Robert Duffy, and he has said that right out of the box they got excellent 1080p performance, and then they start to do 4K tests, and soon in the future we're doing 8K tests, and we expect Ryzen to do really well. They said that if you take into account how many people are streaming gameplay these days, it's pushing a lot of bandwidth out the pipe that's doing live video encoding, and you think about the additional cores and capabilities that Ryzen has, your game is still going to run really fast, even if these people are doing other stuff on their PCs. And they also said that as a developer iteration times are a lot faster because your compiles are faster. And also what it means for gamers is key because of this super attractive price point. So we're going to see a lot more things capable of CPUs in a lot more people's hands, and additional threads and cores will allow us to turn up a lot more things like better frame rates, more AI, and more things happening in the game space. Enough, those sentiments are very closely mirrored with Nvidia's Scott Wesson, who also heads up Kronos, which of course develops OpenGL as well as Vulkan, along with various other standards in the industry. He basically told me during an interview, which I'll try to remember to link in the video description, that essentially more threads, more processor cores equals that you can basically do more stuff other than just graphics. Artificial intelligence, advanced physics, just basically make the game look a lot more immersive and feel a lot more immersive, and more importantly, be a lot more immersive. Switching squarely to the Vega side of things, and things have been a little quiet on the Vega front recently, which has led to some speculation that we might see a delay. This is not the case. First of all, I want to just talk about the performance side of things, and well, a lot of folks have been messaging me about this one, and I, to be honest, could not even thank everyone who has. There's been at least a dozen people who have messaged me either via email, Twitter, Facebook, you get the picture. So thank you to everyone who has. So basically there was an Ask Me Anything session with Ryzen CPUs hosted by Tom's Hardware. Now, the desktop CPU marketing manager actually revealed something quite interesting. the individual, Don, and I'm probably going to butcher the poor man's last name, Wolagrowski, I'm going to say, has said, and I quote, "FreeSync is cheaper because of its open standards. In many cases, a panel manufacturer can make a FreeSync panel by changing their monitor's firmware and having it meet the spec. For G-Sync, Nvidia charges a licensing fee. Because of this differential alone, I think the inevitable future is FreeSync." However, the part we're interested in, and I quote, is Vega performance compared to the GTX 1080 Ti and the Titan XP looks really nice, end quote. So what does that tell us? Well, really nice is a pretty vague statement, but it wouldn't make sense, at least in my mind, if I was AMD, to say that it looks really nice compared to a GTX 1080 Ti, or let's say a Titan XP, let's just say the Titan, but then actually perform inferior, because that would piss people off, or at least it would make people think, huh. So at the very least, it's pretty much even with a Titan XP. Possibly a little bit better. Obviously, some caveats automatically appear. What's the pricing? What are the driver revisions like? And is it going to be like that across different games? And also, well, what circumstances does it look nice against? Now, obviously we don't know the full picture, but I'm giving an example here. Does it look great against Titan XP? I'm sorry, look nice against Titan XP if it's against certain games, and other games Titan XP looks much nicer? Or is it just across the board? What resolutions are we referring to? Is there CPU bound issues? What about anti-aliasing? And, you know, God knows what else. So in other words, there's still a lot of questions. Second thing, what about the models? So for example, and obviously we don't know even the Vega models yet, but let's say we have the equivalent of the high-end Vega. I'm just going to call it the Vega 1. Is it that looks really good against the Titan XP? Or is it even the lower end model looks nice against the Titan XP? We just don't know. It's such a vague statement. I do feel it's going to be a beast, the GPU. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a disappointment at all. I personally believe it is going to be faster than an equivalently priced Pascal, because that makes sense. However, before I start waffling too much about this, there is also another rather interesting thing that's popped up. So, we all know that the Vega series has not exactly had a definitive release date for some time, but there were talks that it was being pushed back because AMD have been somewhat cagey regarding further information. But that's not really surprising because AMD are kind of quiet usually when it comes to revealing GPU details. It's weird. They're quite happy to reveal, let's say, the architecture of a card, but they don't really tell you their plans for it. So in other words, they won't say, well, okay, we're going to be releasing this, this, and this, and it's going to appeal to this target market, this target market, this target market, and we're going to have this SKU, this SKU, this SKU, excuse me, and we're hoping to hit these clocks. They won't give that information. What they will say is, hey, we are working on this technology, here's how it's different, here's how we're advancing the overall architecture, and then basically the speculation can begin. So, currently, of course, we've got the the RX 500 series, which is essentially up to about the mid-range. It's high-end to mid-range, at best. I would argue the 580 isn't quite high-end, but it's pretty high-end. But anything above that, and you're basically boned if you want to go AMD. So AMD, however, have taken to Facebook, and they have once again confirmed that, well, when it's ready, it will be this quarter. So, in other words, the GPU will actually be released this quarter. So what does that mean? Well, essentially within about 2 months, the card should be available on store shelves, and you should be able to purchase the damn thing. And because I know I'm going to get someone asking in the comments, as far as I know, with the trip that Amy has gone on, it is not Vega related, it is Ryzen related. So there is no Vega reveal or anything like that that she is attending. And I'm answering that now because I know I'm probably going to get a couple of people messaging me asking whether, you know, it's Vega related. No, it's not, as far as I'm aware. What we do know about Vega, and this is more generic stuff, is that, well, users are going to have a lot of options because they're add-on board companies, in other words, the AIBs, so let's say the MSIs, the ASUSs, whomever else are producing the cards, have a lot more freedom. They can produce it with different coolers, PCBs, and memory configurations, and this is going to be available at launch. One issue I've got with Nvidia, especially with a certain card that's just been released, is that they were kind of stingy in their, let's say, rules regarding AIBs, as a lot of folks know. Now, Nvidia obviously have pretty optimized drivers for Pascal because it's already out. However, AMD don't have that luxury as yet, but they have pulled down a lot of their team to work on the Vega driver set. So from what we understand, about 80% of their team is currently beavering away, and the GPU driver team, just to clarify, is currently beavering away, at least in some capacity, to improve the performance of Vega. There are two things which give us some further insight regarding the release date, and they would be Prey and Alien Covenant. Now, in regarding Prey, the game is released, well, pretty much within the same time as Alien Covenant, this May. So, in theory, Vega should release at some point June, at the latest, early June, in theory, or end of May, assuming there are no slippages. Now, I don't want to go too much into the Vega architecture because, quite frankly, we've gone through it quite exhaustively previously, but basically, there are several major changes to the Vega architecture, and I say several major as in not some tweaks here or there, but essentially it's a complete redesign of the GCN architecture, graphics core next. It's now known as NCU, which basically means that it's the next generation of compute units from AMD. What's my take on all of this? Well, pretty much what you can expect. It's like, if you need a graphics card now, and you're happy to accept the fact that, well, Vega could be, let's say, 20% faster in theory than the equivalently priced Nvidia available card now, well, by all means, go for it. There are only two small issues regarding Vega. The first is it's not available now, and we don't know the pricing. The second is those pesky rumours regarding Volta. I don't want to cover old ground too much, but there are those rumours that Volta is either going to be available some point early this year, or some point, later this year, or early next year. Honestly, I don't think it really matters though, because assuming Nvidia are not subject to slipping their release date back a little bit, I personally believe it is going to be 2018 we're going to see Volta, simply because, well, the Titan XP's only just come out. Imagine if they released Pascal, a sequel to Pascal, let's say 3 months' time. People are going to be way too pissed off. There has to be at least several months that pass before a new architecture comes out, which leads me to believe it's going to be, at the earliest, we're going to see this card in November/December time, and most likely it's going to be early next year we're going to see Volta, which really means AMD, at least in theory, have a nice run-up. The only potential counter that Nvidia could offer in the short term is a Pascal refresh, which I don't necessarily is going to happen. I don't know if they're going to do that, because I don't know if there'd be enough time. Like, let's say they got out a Pascal refresh, let's say May or June time, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's just suppose it did. What would they even call it? Would they call it the GTX 11 series? Assuming they did do that, they'd be really pissed off, because if you've just bought one of the new GTX 1080s that's got a faster memory configuration, or the 1060s which have got a faster memory configuration, you're going to be pissed. And if you bought the Titan XP, you're going to be pissed. And really, then they're not really doing that much. And if you bought that, and then, let's say, 6 months or whatever months later into the future, we see the new Volta's released, you're also going to be pissed if you are the adopter of the refresh. So I don't think that's going to happen either. So my personal opinion is Nvidia are just going to ride it out, do the best they can. They've released the faster memory configurations. They're probably going to, do the best they can to optimize the drivers, and basically just accept the fact they're going to be a bit slower, potentially, because obviously we've not seen the benchmarks yet, for a couple of months. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.